Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel. Okay, let's dive into something incredibly important and really deeply human today. We're exploring the inner world of adopted children, looking at attachment, trauma, and, well, what that really means for adoptive families.
Right.
Our guide for this deep dive is a really comprehensive resource. It's packed with insights into that psychological landscape and, crucially, practical ways to build strong connections.
And our mission here really is to give you, the listener, a clearer lens on, the dynamics of attachment and trauma within adoption,
Yeah.
helping you build those secure, resonant relationships that are, well, they're the foundation of family life, aren't they?
Absolutely. And, this material makes it clear right from the start. Adoption, while it can be beautiful and life-giving, it actually begins with a loss, a disruption.
That's key.
Even when it's the absolute best path forward, that initial separation, that break,
Yeah.
it can plant seeds.
Seeds of uncertainty, maybe fear, maybe even a deep, unresolved longing for what was lost. And what's crucial to understand, as this guide really emphasizes, is how that early disruption shapes what we call the child's inner world.
Right, the inner world.
Yeah. The behaviors you might see on the surface, perhaps withdrawing or maybe, pushing boundaries constantly, they aren't typically acts of defiance aimed at you.
Okay.
They're often deeply ingrained survival strategies, developed at a time when the world just felt unreliable or unsafe.
Survival strategies.
Yeah,
Wow, that really shifts the perspective, doesn't it?
it does.
The guide goes into detail about the different insecure attachment styles that can emerge from these early experiences.
It does. There are a few common patterns described. You might encounter a child who seems, well, unusually self-sufficient, almost guarded, kind of avoiding closeness. This could indicate an avoidant attachment style, where they learn basically to depend only on themselves because caregivers maybe weren't consistently emotionally available.
Right. And then there's the
Yeah.
opposite, the child who desperately wants connection but then suddenly rejects it.
Yeah.
That push-pull.
Exactly. That often points to an ambivalent attachment. Imagine a child running to you after a minor fall, needing comfort, but then kicking and screaming when you try to hold them.
Oh, wow.
That confusing push and pull captures it a deep yearning for closeness mixed with anxiety or uncertainty about whether you can actually meet that need reliably,
Yeah, I see. And the source mentions a third pattern, often described as the most complex.
Yes, that's disorganized attachment. This frequently arises from early environments that were, frankly, frightening or highly unpredictable.
Okay.
So the child's innate drive to seek comfort from a caregiver conflicts with their experience of that same caregiver potentially being a source of fear or confusion.
Oh, that sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. Their system is caught in a terrible bind, really, leading to chaotic or unpredictable responses that make it very hard for them to feel safe or regulated.
So, at the heart of all these, according to the material, is this fundamental conflict. A profound need to belong tangled up with a deep fear of rejection.
Precisely. The fear that they might be abandoned again, that perhaps they aren't lovable enough to keep. This fear can manifest as testing behavior. It's often not that they doubt your love, necessarily, but that they fear love is conditional or impermanent. They test the limits.
To see if you'll leave.
Yeah, to see if you will maybe inadvertently confirm their deepest fear.
That makes sense.
Oh.
The guide also highlights identity confusion, which is a significant layer, especially in transracial or international adoptions. Those fundamental questions: where do I truly belong?
Wow.
Who are my people?
This is vital. An adopted child's identity isn't just a single stream. It's more like a confluence of different rivers.
Right.
If questions about their birth story, their culture, their origins aren't openly acknowledged and held with care, it can create a kind of internal split. The guide notes that this can escalate, leading to feelings of shame, alienation, or feeling fragmented, particularly as they navigate adolescence and young adulthood. It's a really sensitive time.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're finding this conversation helpful, maybe take a moment to subscribe or leave a comment about your own experiences or questions. We do try to read them. So this isn't just about feelings or thoughts, is it? The material also delves into the science, the physiology of early trauma. The idea that trauma literally lives in the body.
Right. And what's powerful to understand here is that early traumatic experiences don't just leave psychological scars. They actually wire the nervous system for threat.
Wire it for threat.
Yeah, children might live in a state of hyperarousal, always on edge, vigilant, easily startled, or Conversely, hyperarousal, appearing withdrawn, numb, checked out, almost floppy sometimes.
These are automatic body responses. They can be triggered by seemingly innocuous things like certain types of touch or unexpected changes in routine.
Absolutely. For a nervous system that's been on high alert, a sudden hug might feel invasive, not comforting at all.
Mhm.
A change in schedule might feel like a complete loss of control. Their body reacts instinctively to what feels like a threat, even when logically, maybe there is none. Seeing these not as deliberate misbehavior, but as a nervous system trying to protect itself, well, that's a game changer for parents.
Yeah, absolutely. The source brings in foundational concepts like attachment theory, the safe base idea.
Right. A securely attached child views their caregiver as a safe base they can venture out from to explore the world, knowing they can always return for comfort and reassurance.
Like a home base in a game.
Kind of, yeah. But for a child with insecure attachment, that safe base wasn't consistently there, or maybe it was unpredictable. So the world feels inherently unpredictable and scary. This underlies so many of the fear-based behaviors we see.
And the guide also differentiates between like a single traumatic event and what it calls developmental trauma. What's the difference there?
That's a key distinction. Developmental trauma, as described here, isn't usually one big explosion of fear. It's more the chronic, pervasive experience of unmet needs neglect, unpredictable care, emotional unavailability during those crucial formative early years.
When the brain is developing so rapidly.
Exactly. When the brain is rapidly developing, this consistent lack of safety fundamentally shapes the child's view of themselves, others, and the world around them.
Wow. And when a child gets overwhelmed by these deep-seated responses, the source outlines those instinctive body reactions we often hear about. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah, these are ancient evolutionary survival responses kicking in. Fight can look like arguments, defiance, or aggression. Pretty obvious sometimes. Flight might be literally running away or just internally checking out, zoning out.
Okay.
Freeze is that state of appearing numb, rigid, or dissociated, just stuck.
Right.
And fawn, which is often overlooked, is attempting to appease or people please to make the environment feel safer, often at the expense of their own needs or feelings.
Trying to keep the peace.
Exactly. And the crucial insight from the source is that recognizing these as automatic, instinctive responses, not willful choices, is absolutely critical for how parents respond.
Yeah, because it changes everything.
Yeah, it really does. It shifts the question from why are they trying to make my life difficult to what is their body trying to communicate or do to stay safe right now.
Okay, so we've delved into understanding the child's inner world and the science behind it, which is fascinating, but also potentially overwhelming.
It can be.
So now, let's talk about the most empowering part of this material for parents. The practical wisdom. Knowing the why is essential, but knowing what to do changes everything.
Absolutely. And what's emphasized repeatedly is the immense power of daily presence and attunement.
Just being there.
Just being there. The guide presents this not just as a nice idea, but as a potent healing force.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need special therapeutic skills for this part. Your consistent, tuned-in presence is profoundly therapeutic in itself.
It talks about becoming a safe haven.
Yeah.
I particularly like the phrase presence over perfection.
That's such a relief, isn't it? It takes so much pressure off. When your child is in distress, pushing you away, melting down, they aren't usually saying, I don't want you. They're often screaming, maybe non-verbally, will you stay with me through this? By remaining calm, breathing, offering a steady gaze, or just an open posture, you are physically and emotionally saying, yes, I'm here. You are not alone with these big feelings. This literally teaches their nervous system safety.
And this leads right into the concept of emotional co-regulation, the idea that our nervous systems actually help regulate theirs.
Think of it like this. A young child's brain hasn't fully built the internal thermostat to manage overwhelming emotions yet. They need to borrow yours.
Okay.
When you stay grounded, responding thoughtfully rather than, escalating with them, you are essentially lending them your calm nervous system.
Wow.
And over time, their brain starts to learn from yours and build its own capacity for self-regulation. It's quite amazing.
But let's be honest, parenting isn't always a picture of perfect calm. Ruptures happen. We mess up. The guide is very realistic about repairing those moments, right?
Oh, absolutely vital. This material is clear. You will get it wrong sometimes. You'll react instead of respond. You'll raise your voice. You'll misunderstand a need. It happens.
too.
Healing isn't about avoiding ruptures, it's about repairing them. Apologizing, "I'm sorry, I got impatient," explaining, "I should have listened better," and trying again teaches your child that relationships can weather storms and come back together. It builds resilience in the connection itself.
That's huge. Avoiding retraumatization is another key practical focus. Simple things like our language, how we approach physical touch, and offering control seem really important here.
Absolutely critical. Phrases like "you should be grateful" or "look how much better off you are," they can cut deeply, invalidating their grief and their history.
Yeah.
Respecting physical boundaries, asking permission before a hug, even for a young child, and giving choices whenever possible, even small ones like peas or carrots, helps restore a sense of autonomy that trauma often steals.
And something that might sound obvious, but the guide emphasizes its profound impact: consistency and predictability.
Yeah, it sounds basic, but for a brain wired to anticipate threat, consistency is like building a neurological safety net. Predictable routines, a regular bedtime story, knowing what to expect after school, consistent responses from you, they create anchors in their world. They signal safety at a really primal level, allowing their nervous system to maybe finally let down its guard a bit.
Okay, moving beyond the day-to-day interactions, the guide also talks about helping children integrate their identity, honoring the fullness of their story.
This is so foundational for healthy development. Your child's story didn't begin the day they joined your family. They have a history, a lineage, people who came before.
Right.
This material stresses the importance of holding space for complex, sometimes contradictory feelings. It is completely okay and totally normal for a child to feel sadness or grief about their birth family and simultaneously feel deep love and belonging with their adoptive family. Both can be true.
So it's about validating all those feelings,
Mhm.
the grief, the confusion, curiosity, even joy, not trying to fix it.
Yes, exactly. Witness it with compassion. You don't need to have all the answers or fix the feeling. Just acknowledging it. It makes sense you feel sad thinking about that. Helps them feel seen and understood.
Correct.
And for children from different racial or cultural backgrounds, actively supporting connection to their roots through food, language, community, role models isn't optional. The guide frames identity not as a betrayal of their adoptive family, but as a birthright. It's part of who they are.
This all sounds like incredibly deep, sometimes challenging work. The resource is also very practical in addressing when professional help might be necessary.
It's very clear on that. Sometimes love, presence, and consistent parenting aren't enough on their own to unravel deeply held trauma responses, and that is absolutely okay. It's not a failing.
Right.
Knowing when and how to seek professional support is actually a sign of strength of good parenting.
And the guide lists specific signs that might indicate a need for trauma-informed therapy, things to look out for.
Yes. Look for patterns like ongoing, intense aggression, or maybe significant withdrawal or detachment, persistent sleep problems or nightmares, a consistent struggle with receiving or giving affection, repetitive play that seems to reenact traumatic themes, or notable developmental delays or aggressions. These can be signals that the child's system is kind of stuck.
And it specifies the kind of expertise to look for in a therapist, because not all therapy is the same.
Crucially, yes. You need someone trained in developmental trauma, attachment-based therapy, or perhaps somatic experiencing. These approaches understand that healing involves the body and the relationship, not just talking about the past.
That makes sense. Now, the material anticipates common questions parents have and includes a sort of FAQ section. Let's touch on a few key ones. A frequent question is, can adopted children actually form secure attachments later, even with a tough start?
And the answer from this guide is a resounding yes. While early experiences definitely create pathways in the brain remains capable of change plasticity, we call it. With consistent, attuned, sensitive caregiving in the adoptive family, significant healing is absolutely possible, and many, many children develop secure attachments over time.
That's hopeful. What if a child actively resists my affection or connection? I imagine that can feel so personally painful for a parent.
Oh, absolutely. But it's often a trauma response or a protection mechanism, not a rejection of you personally. The guide suggests offering affection on their terms, respecting their space, and focusing first on building that emotional safety and trust.
So safety first.
Safety first. Physical closeness can then often follow naturally when they feel safe enough to let you in. Don't force it.
Should we be talking about the birth family? Is that confusing or upsetting?
The material is quite firm on this. Absolutely, yes. Age-appropriate, honest conversations about their birth story and birth family help children integrate their identity. It's part of who they are.
Right.
Acknowledging it openly reduces the potential for secrecy and shame down the line.
Okay. Discipline is always tricky, especially with a trauma background. What approach does the guide recommend?
Well, the emphasis is really on connection before correction. Since many challenging behaviors stem from dysregulation or unmet needs, rather than just willful defiance.
Like we talked about with fight, flight, freeze.
Exactly. So the focus shifts to helping the child regulate their nervous system and strengthening the parent-child bond, rather than solely on punishment. Understanding the why behind the behavior is paramount.
How can parents best support identity, especially across racial or cultural differences?
This material stresses actively seeking out what it calls cultural mirrors.
Cultural mirrors.
Yeah, connecting with people from their backgrounds, celebrating traditions, engaging with their community, finding books or media that reflect their heritage. It's about having an ongoing conversation about who they are, embracing all the layers.
Okay. And finally, a very real question many adoptive parents grapple with. Is it okay to feel completely overwhelmed sometimes?
Oh, this guide fully validates that.
Yeah,
It is more than okay. It's completely normal. This work is complex, demanding, and deeply emotional.
it really is.
The material strongly encourages seeking support from other adoptive families, therapists, support groups. You truly are not meant to do this alone.
This deep dive has really illuminated the complex but navigable terrain of attachment and trauma in adoption. The material leaves us with a powerful core message, I think.
It does. And that core message is that adoption isn't about erasing a child's past. It's about building a future that acknowledges and honors their whole story. Your role as a parent isn't necessarily to fix them, but to be a consistent, compassionate presence with them on their healing journey.
And while this path isn't always easy, it is profoundly sacred.
And what's truly transformative, I think, is recognizing that by committing to seeing your child fully, helping to soothe their overwhelmed nervous system, and simply staying present through the challenges, you are actively helping to rewrite their deepest internal story.
Writing it.
Yeah, shifting it from one rooted in fear and unpredictability towards one rooted in safety and love.
And here is a provocative thought for you to carry with you from this deep dive. Consider that the healing journey for the child is almost always also a profound journey of growth and transformation for the parent,
It's true.
often revealing unexpected depths of strength, patience, and capacity for empathy you might never have known you possessed.
Absolutely. This deep dive has covered the crucial territory of understanding the adopted child's inner world, the science of attachment and trauma, and the practical everyday power of presence, consistency, and repair.
We truly hope this has provided you with valuable insights and perhaps shifted your perspective on the beautiful, challenging, and ultimately immensely rewarding path of adoptive parenting.
Yeah.
If aspects of this resonated strongly, or if you see some of those signs we discussed in your child, remember this material points towards seeking trauma-informed resources or perhaps revisiting the guide for more depth.
Keep learning, keep growing, and just keep showing up. Your steady presence is a profound gift.
Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive Podcast channel.